Hi everyone, it's Sam, NFT Statistics, and this is your Proof Daily NFT Countdown, your daily show for all the news and data in NFTs. A lot to talk about today. A very successful drop from Emily Shi. Also, Mercedes launched their product. We'll talk about that, as well as a little bit of new information from Blur. Let's get right to it, starting off with a quick market overview. Volumes were flat, still in that elevated range that we saw yesterday on the back of all that dumping of Bored Ape Yacht Club into bids. Kind of saw a pretty similar trend. 84% of the market share was with Blur. And if you look at where the volume over the past 2 days has been, you can see Bored Ape Yacht Club, Mutant Ape Yacht Club have really done the lion's share of the volume. Something like 70 to 80% of the volume has been on those projects. In terms of prices, the large cap index was down 1%, a little bit of strength in Moonbirds and Doodles, and then some weakness in VFriends. Bored Ape Yacht Club here, the whole set was broadly flat, down a touch. But if you actually look at Mutant Apes, which is one of the large, obviously the second biggest project in the collection, Mutant Apes had one of the airdrop farmers come in and dump 160 of them, I believe. And we really saw what was a steady price, kind of in that 9.5 to 10 and change range, go down a bunch lower, now trading around 9.3 ETH. We'll see how that plays out over time. I wanted to look at a couple other charts that talk about this narrative I've been saying with all the wash trading and people dumping into bids from that blend wallet, which pays no royalties. You can see here, this is the percentage of the volume on Blur that was people dumping into bids versus people picking NFTs they want and buying those. And you can see it's been the highest over the past 2 days that it's ever been. You know, dumping into bids has been an issue for a long time, but in terms of ETH volume, the highest percentage of total volume has been dumped into bids that we've ever had before on that platform. And then the second thing, this chart here looks at the weekly royalty rate trailing 7 days on Bored Ape Yacht Club on Blur. And what you can see is it has really fallen pretty precipitously since the blend program was really launched. But more importantly, since people started to realize that selling from the blend wallet is zero royalty. You know, Blur did commit to half of 1% royalties for their projects, but there is this loophole now that if you sell through Blend, you don't have to pay any royalties, and that's what all the flippers are doing on Bored Ape Yacht Club, and the royalties have basically gone to essentially zero, maybe 1/10 of 1%, something like that. In terms of the mid-cap index, prices were down a small bit, had a little bit of weakness in Rumble Kongs and Wreck Guy. And heavy metal I wanted to touch on. You know, this chart is pretty simple, not a whole lot going on here. Prices were flat in heavy metal, but Yuga did tweet yesterday, ape follow ? And added a lot more to the lore of what's coming with this game, I believe, or what's coming with the heavy metal ecosystem. You can see in this video, you know, they feature both heavy metal as well as Bored Ape Kennel Club, which is in the back. They also created what they called a garage, where you can go and you can bring your heavy metal and you can look more closely at it. You can learn more about the different traits. You know, kind of interesting that on the back of this, normally videos in the past by Bored Ape Yacht Club did create a little bit of interest. I think this narrative has kind of just been long, multi-steps. People aren't really sure what to expect, and prices were broadly flat across the ecosystem on Kennel Club as well as heavy metal. In terms of art projects, only one project, Chromie Squiggles, did more than 10 ETH of volume, but let's look at some of the bigger trades. You had a squiggle just sell for 10.25, pretty much a floor squiggle that was sold into the offer. Here you have an archetype by Kieto Golid, which sold for 9.4 ETH. In the lower left, we have a subscape by Matt DeLaurier, which sold for 5.15 ETH. Feels a little bit at the lower end of the range there. And then a human unreadable. There were a bunch of sales. We're still getting 4 to 5 human unreadable sales per day. And this was the highest price one, sold for 1.75 ETH. Other stories to talk about. Emily Shi's Interwoven minted yesterday. Let's dive into this. I thought this was really cool art. Love the story from Emily. This is a tweet from her on June. She said she was excited to announce that she was releasing this new on-chain art project in collaboration with Cactoid Labs, as well as LACMA, the Los Angeles Contemporary Museum of Art. Basically said that this project, this art, was inspired by quilts that were on display in LACMA from before, I believe from before 1900. Talks about how these quilts kind of have a lot of generative art in them, repeated shapes and patterns, human imperfection and other aspects to it. And you can see in this piece on the right, which was a 1 of 100 that she launched in March, that she really incorporated a lot of this beautiful quilt work into that art. And the art that she released for this new drop, which was 100 1-of-1s, or 100 of the same algorithm, but unique pieces, really kind of followed a lot of what she did with this 1 of 100 that she launched in March. She said the algorithm has been transformed to more readily give rise to forms and creature-like figures, which you can see kind of that creature-like aspect here, meant to evoke the narrative and storytelling aspect that constitutes an integral part of the quilt making tradition. So it really tries to incorporate generative art and quilt making into this algorithm, into this work that she's done here. I think it's really quite cool. There were 100 pieces in this mint. It was entirely allow listed. It was a 0.5 ETH mint, and the floor is now 4 ETH. So a huge success. And it's nice to see a W for collectors. It's nice to see a time where collectors get in a price and make some money. There have been about 5 trades, I believe, since it launched. You can see one at 2 ETH, one at 4.6, one at 3.5. These are some of them, but just really beautiful art. So congratulations to Emily on that. Congratulations to the people who got the mint and anybody who wants to get involved. I mean, still with just 100 pieces, it's far fewer than Memories of Qilin, which has, a same to higher floor. So could be an interesting one to continue to watch. Third thing to talk about, the Mercedes drop happened yesterday. They put out a tweet saying that their format was going to be a reverse Dutch auction starting at 2 ETH with a resting price at 0.2 ETH. And it was going to be a 90-minute process. There were 1,000 NFTs to mint, so quite a bit of them. And what you can see here, first, let's look at how the prices played out after the mint. You can see that the initial trades were at 0.4 ETH. Then they went down to 2, kind of rose up to 0.3, and now have rested around 0.3. Here's some of the art, really cool stuff, really kind of plays on this theme of automotives and, while still being generative. So I don't know, I think it's all very cool stuff. Going to the mint results, it was a 0.27 median mint price. Okay, so the trades, they start at 0.4, but now the floor is at 0.26, the bid is at 0.2. So unfortunately, people who got in here, if they held it for more than 24 hours, at least right now are slightly down on those mints. Interestingly, it has a market cap of now 260 ETH versus Porsche, which has a market cap of 2,300 ETH. Now, what I think is interesting is that Mercedes, I'd say, did everything right here. Hired a really well-established generative artist to do the art for them. I think really played on this theme of automotive while combining it with the generative art traditions, and just did a good job with it. Whereas Porsche's felt a lot more simple, but for some reason, and you just never know what's going to happen with NFTs, the Porsche market cap is about 9x higher, but still very cool art. So hopefully we'll see continued cool stuff from Mercedes, and these collectors will get back in the green. Fourth thing to talk about, Blur updated their point system, just put out a tweet, kind of saying here a few things that have changed for us. Here they are. Basic goal is to avoid people who are playing the system. Now, my view is people always play the system. That's what happens when you pay people to do the things you want. They end up just trying to figure out how to get your money while not putting a lot of money at risk or while manipulating. We do see a whole lot of that among the liquidity providers. I personally have become a big lender on the Blur system, so I've started to really kind of see the ins and outs. But about the changes that they made, one is that they will lower the loyalty scores of people who transfer NFTs to new wallets to list. Remember, they have this loyalty concept where they want to monopolize everything you do. And the way they do that is by saying, if you list on other platforms, then we're going to give you fewer points and you're going to get a lower likelihood of a better box or something like that. Now so what a lot of people do is they just moved NFTs to other wallets and then listed there. They're saying, we're watching you. We can see that too. That's going to lower your loyalty as well. The second thing they said is people who, a lot of people were wash trading to make projects higher on the visibility list and get more and more points. We saw it on Punks. I'd argue we actually have been seeing it on Bored Ape Yacht Club. And what they're saying is that people who wash trade are going to get skulled, that their points are not going to be valid. I think that they've been doing this for a while, but interesting to see them reiterate this. And then the third thing, and I've talked about this before, is spoofing bids. People who put in huge bids, but then pull those bids when they see, kind of in the pool that there are people who are accepting those bids. We also see people who put in huge bids, but below the first 60, people can only dump 60 at once, and then pull the bids if they see someone selling to 60. They're saying that that's going to be illegal. At least the MEV kind of observers are the ones who are going to, not be able to get points going forward. So it's just trying to make it so a lot of this explicit gaming of the system gets removed. A lot of people are providing fake liquidity, putting in these huge bids, but below the 60 bid and really just never trading, never providing liquidity. That's, of course, not what Blur wants. And then the last thing they said is that there will be less focus on the top collections. So on a day like yesterday, where Bored Ape Yacht Club does 14,000 ETH of volume, that's not going to get them 80% of the points. And I just think that makes sense. There's just too much kind of bulk happening in those top collections, and I just got to talk about this one because I'm involved there, but as someone who's doing some of this lending, but also just because this is such a hub right now for all the activity that's happening for the top PFPs. You just have to focus on when they make these changes. And then lastly, let's talk about a few notable sales. One awesome one-of-one sale by Claire Silver, Entropy, 31.69 ETH. This was a 2021 mint from her. I believe it was a secondary sale sold to the account ETH account at ETH ACCT. She says she's thrilled to see it. One of her favorite people in the space. So love to see that. Congrats to Claire, the seller, as well as the buyer here. This piece, Rooted by Rachael Pease, sold for 3 ETH. We've talked about Rachael Pease before. Nice to see another sale from her. Here are a couple of her top sales for 3 and 1.69 ETH. Just a little bit about Rachael again. Her work documents real trees and locations. And this body of work that we're seeing is from the Inyo National Forest in California. She was born in Indiana, currently works in UK. Love to see that. And then lastly, this piece by called Aquarium by Stephan Vasement, sold for 1.5 ETH. There just aren't that many sales anymore at 5 ETH or more. I don't think we've had one really all week, or there have been very few. So get to focus on some of these pieces that sell at a slightly lower price. He has one other piece. This is the other piece that is sold for also 1.5 ETH on Super Rare. And if you like this look and feel, if you like this artist, he does have a lot on Foundation with reserve prices at 0.25 or 0.5 ETH. So you can go check out more of his work there. That is all from me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you liked it, give us a like. I say it every day, but we mean it. Always helps when you like the stuff. Tell us what you think in the comments. Always love to see that. And subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. We appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow and every weekday with another show. Have a great day.